Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event at CWL. We are welcoming with us Lisa Hinz for Center Staging Your Life, a self-care workshop, and we're so glad to have each of you with us here today. I'd love to just take a few minutes to introduce Lisa to you all and let you get to know her before we get started. Lisa Hinz is the CEO of the Confidence Track, has worked in corporate leadership for the last 20 plus years, including Fortune 500 companies and leading large teams across the US and Canada. Her leadership and coaching experience allow her to effectively coach her professional clients, as well as offer organizations and individuals her Elevating Career Confidence program, which focused on strengthening one's impact within their organization by identifying and understanding the 7 levels of energy leadership, elevating their confidence and resilience, communicating effectively, and leading authentically. These leadership skills create a powerhouse professional who can influence and lead confidently and resiliently. Lisa also speaks at conferences, workshops, organizations, and businesses on imposter syndrome and authentic leadership. We're so excited to have her and her professionalism here with us today. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Aubrey. I am going to share my screen here as we get started. All right. Well, it is a true honor to be here. And today I'm going to talk about the strategies for prioritizing self-care that can help make us happier and more energized leaders, not just within our organizations, but within our own lives. The strategy I'm going to present today is called Center Staging Your Life. And in today's world, especially right now, we've got the holidays, we've got finals, we've got year end for a lot of organizations. There's so much going on. And we get so caught up in fulfilling the role of a human doing instead of a human being. We are the do all be all, and our to-do list is endless at times. So we often put ourselves last on our own priority list. And talking about self-care, I want to make sure that we're all talking about the same definition as we go through this next hour. So when I mention self-care, it's taking care of your own health and well-being. And I want to say it's not being selfish. I know a lot of people struggle sometimes to put themselves first because they think that they're being selfish by doing so. And it's okay. It's okay to put your own needs and wants first sometimes. And we need to take care of ourselves. So today, this hour is all about you. And if you can turn off your email and silence your phone and just really give yourself the gift of this hour, that's really part of what self-care is about. And we're going to make this interactive today. We're going to have a couple of breakouts, which should be fun and insightful, but also utilizing the chat. So if you have any comments, any questions, please feel free to use the chat. And speaking of the chat, I'm going to ask you to use it right now. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how would you rate your self-care as it is today? I'm just curious to get a sense for where everyone's at with that. So go ahead and put in the chat, how would you rate your self-care as it is today on a scale of 1 to 10? Right, we've got 3, we've got some 4s. Hey, Lisa Jasako, you're a 7, great job. All right, we are kind of across the board here, which is great, right? There's room for improvement, typically. Even the higher numbers, by leveling up just 1 number can feel like a big difference. So it's good to have that little gut check once in a while to do those scales of 1 to 10. It really gives you insight as to where you are today. Difficult to be honest with myself in the chat, exactly. And that's what we're here today for, right? So Center Staging Your Life, right? The name of this program, what does that mean to you? When you hear Center Staging Your Life, how does that resonate with you? You can go ahead and put in the chat if anything comes to mind, because that's what this whole program is about. For those of you who are thinking about that, I am going to give the official definition, right? So yeah, taking care of myself instead of expecting others to do it for me. Exactly. Putting myself first. Exactly. Great answers right there. So The official definition is the central part of a theatrical stage, which is not surprising. That should be expected. The part of the definition that I really want us to focus on today is being a central or highly prominent position. And that is about you being in a central or highly prominent position within your own life. And you might think, Lisa, this is impossible. You have no idea all of the things I have on my schedule right now. Well, I'm here today to change that word impossible to I'm possible. That's what you need to focus on. We're talking about center staging your life. Don't let stage fright take over. It can become much simpler when you break it down into the proper steps. And I'm going to walk through with you how to do that today. And before we dive in, I would like you to keep in mind this quote: big things have small beginnings. That's the key to success of this method. Small steps, small beginnings reap very large rewards. So there are three main steps to the strategy, and I'm going to go through what each of those are right now. So the very first one is releasing ugly. So type ugly into the chat. So ugly stands for unnecessary guilt limiting you. And again, I talked about it can feel selfish at times when you want to take time for yourself, and we feel guilty. So we're going to talk about how to release that ugly and get rid of that so we can do some of the things that energize us. The second step that we'll talk to is granting self-permission. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll walk through why that part is important. And number three, a method called making one change at a time, which will help. Again, I'll step through how to do that. So we're going to dive in to releasing ugly. So here we go. Story or fact? When is your guilt that you might have for taking time for yourself, is it based on story or fact? And it's really important to think through which it is. So story is defined as an assumption or an account of imaginary events. And the stories that we create in our own minds and tell ourselves are usually worse than reality, aren't they? And we believe the stories that we tell ourselves. We believe them so much that it becomes hard to believe otherwise. So an example, if I don't stay late at work tonight when everyone else is, my boss is going to think that I'm a slacker, right? Is that a story or a fact? Go ahead and put in the chat which one you think it is. My boss is going to think I'm a slacker if I don't stay late tonight. Is that a story or is it a fact? Right, story. Yes, it is a story. All right, another example. If I go to yoga class tonight instead of picking up my dry cleaning, I'm not going to have anything to wear tomorrow. Okay, unless you take your entire closet to the dry cleaners. Is that story or fact? All right. Yes, story. So fact is the quality of being actual. It is knowledge based on real occurrences, and it's a thing that is known or proven to be true. Another example, if I take a cooking class this Saturday at 1 o'clock, I've been wanting to take it for months. It's only offered quarterly, but my niece's volleyball game is at the same time. So I'm going to miss it. Is that a story or is that a fact? It's a fact, right? It's a fact that the time of the cooking class overlaps with my niece's volleyball game, but what develops it into a story is what I think the consequences will be of me missing my niece's volleyball game. I might tell myself that my niece or my sister or brother will be extremely disappointed if I don't go, even though I might go to a majority of her games. And maybe they will be disappointed, but maybe they won't see it as a major deal, not as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be. And they'll quickly forgive and forget. So when guilt is preventing you from doing something, ask yourself if what you're telling yourself is a story or a fact. And if your reason for feeling guilty is based on fact, then you need to weigh the consequences to make the decision on how you want to prioritize your time. All right. All right, next, third person perspective. This When we have a hard time letting go of guilt, and this can be a really effective method. And this method of approaching a challenge using a third person's perspective, it's been studied over the course of time. You see the names up there, Grossman and Cross, and they've labeled it Solomon's paradox, which you can do some research on. It's a proven behavioral phenomenon where people think more clearly about other people's problems than their own. And I know sometimes we laugh, it's always easier to give someone else advice than it is to follow our own advice, right? And the research showed that when we distance ourselves from an issue, we can judge it more clearly. I'll give another example. Say a dear friend of yours comes to you for advice on how her work hours are making her miserable. Her boss always stays late, so she feels like she needs to stay late. Otherwise, she feels guilty and like she's not carrying her weight at work. And because of that, she's not able to spend as much time with her kids because her kids go to bed early. Maybe she's not going to the gym anymore, and maybe she's getting fast food way more often just for the ease of it. So if she came to you with this advice, what would you tell her? And I ask that because listen to your own answer or your own advice, and then apply that same reasoning and logic to your own life and your own situations. Simple, but when we need to figure out our own challenges, it suddenly becomes a difficult task to complete. So try the third person perspective. It can be super effective in helping yourself work through that. All right, we are getting to a fun interactive part here. So this is a third option to help drop the guilt of making time for yourself. And it's to develop what I call a miss list. And if you got the PDF file, and I know Aubrey put it in the chat, I believe it's the 4th page in the PDF file. And this is a list of those things that you can miss or say no to over the next several weeks. And it doesn't mean you have to say no to them or miss them, but it's a starting point to help you recognize the things that you can miss should you choose to reprioritize your schedule to make time for you. And here's an example of what that might look like, right? It's a very simple page. Again, you can see it in the PDF file as well. You can print it off and hopefully use it. But go ahead, you can make simple notes and explain why you can miss an event. So I plugged in, the first one is a networking event. Well, instead of just putting networking event, put in a few notes as to why you can miss it. It just helps to justify your reason for letting go of any guilt you might have associated with it. The miss list also helps you to get a perspective of what you're spending your time on. You can visually see the things that take up your time and energy that you may not necessarily want to do or are preventing you from doing the things that you really desire to do and just energize you. So when you see these things in writing, you'll understand why you haven't spent the time doing the things that you love. The sheer number of things add up day after day, week after week. And we typically have a distorted view or image of how we really are and how our lives are. So once you get it on paper, it can be pretty eye-opening. So this part of the exercise, Aubrey's going to break everyone up into groups. And what we're going to do, if you are able to look at that PDF file, if not, I will try to copy these instructions, go into the breakout rooms and paste them in. Pretty simple though. Once you get into your room, first thing you want to do is designate someone to monitor the time. We're going to have 10 minutes. If the groups seem to be getting through this quicker, we'll pull everyone back quicker. But what I would like you to do, take the first 5 minutes and each of you fill out some of the things on this miss list that you could say no to or miss over the next several weeks. And give yourself time to do that. After that, for the next 5 minutes, each of you will present an item that you put on your miss list and explain to the group why it's possible for you to say no to this thing. If for any reason the person presenting their item on the miss list is having some reservations or not sure how they're going to say no to this, the group can pitch in and give you some ideas. That's the amazing part about these group activities. So everyone is there to support each other. When we come back to the larger group, I'll ask maybe 1 or 2 people to share an item on their miss list. So that's what we are going to do. So Aubrey, anything, are you going to automatically put folks into their rooms?
Yep, I'll do it. And then you just have to accept the invitation.
Okay, perfect. All right. So have fun with this, everyone, and we'll see you back in the main room.
If you've just joined, we are joining some breakout rooms to do some discussion, and we'll put some information in the chat for you. That way you can get some instructions on how to join the room and what to do while you're in there. Okay, they should be in there. If they've not joined, I think they're probably still here in the main room with us. And maybe kind of like we were talking about, people might be multitasking, so no worries.
All right. So if anyone's in this main room and needs to be put into a breakout room, let us know.
Or if you need help getting there, that's also a good question.
So Aubrey, how do I get to the breakout rooms? I'm not seeing the...
Well, maybe I can just put you in them, or I can assign you host. Let's just assign you to be host. Okay, why isn't it working? Interesting.
Or if you're able to, Aubrey, I will just message you.
Just go with it.
Here, I'll message you this, and that's...
Put that in all the...
Yeah, if that helps them. So if you can pop in and just see if they know what they should be doing, that would be great.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Did you see it come in the chat?
Oh, no. Oh, I sent it directly to you. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it looks like it also sent, when I sent it in the breakout room, it sent it to everyone.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so
cool.
Looks like you can send stuff without having to be in the rooms themselves. So that's good.
Got it. So is everyone chatting? Or they might be working on their thing right now. Okay.
I'm going to move her to room 3. It looks like somebody dropped out, so. Great conversations happening, Lisa.
Good.
I
So
almost
do they
prefer
have what's
Sorry.
that?
I was gonna say I almost prefer it, at least as a participant, when the groups are smaller. I feel like I really get to chat about things without having to feel like, oh, I need to rush and make sure everybody gets to talk.
Yeah,
So
true. Yeah. So when we bring folks back, when I ask one or two people to share theirs, can they just unmute themselves or do you have to unmute them?
Nope, they can. They have permission to do that. And they can come off camera too. So I'll make sure it's in speaker view. That way, if they're talking,
Perfect.
then they can see it. And for the recording, I'll cut this time out. So I'll be like, okay. Yeah. So if you want to, you can say like, all right, we've just come back from breakout rooms. I'd love to hear like what was discussed in those times, or if anybody wants to share, that's fine too. Okay. We can also cut out the discussion pieces as well. If people want to get personal or share anything, we can make sure that we do that too. We can just gauge it and see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah.
There's been some where people choose to they choose to like really share, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know if we want that blasted on the internet.
Yeah. 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 Good to be aware of that for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Do they have, or do you have timer, or do they have timers? How much time do they have left?
I think we put them in there at 18. So if you wanted 5 minutes or 5 more minutes.
Yeah, no, that's great.
He originally said 10. So we could put out a 3-minute warning in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Can do that. I'll give it 2 minutes. Yeah, I can share a message. All right, Lisa, I'll go ahead and bring them all back in.
All right. All right. We'll wait a second here. Right, I think everyone is back. So does anyone want to share something that they put on their miss list? Anybody? And Aubrey, I don't know if you can see, but you can. All right, Tanisha. So what did you put on your miss list? Do we have Aubrey? See, someone put in the chat evening TV time. Yeah, I'm sure we can all cut out a little bit of that, can't we? Anyone else? All right. Right, Aubrey put in the chat there. Anything else that someone put on their miss list? Okay. Well, we are going to dive into step number 2, which is granting self-permission. All right. So now that you have some ideas on how to let go of the guilt when you experience taking time for yourself, it's time to take that one step further by actually granting yourself permission to make time for yourself. And while it seems simple to give yourself permission, it's surprising how hard it can be to believe it and accept it until someone tells you it's okay to do that. So in this instance, we're not waiting for someone else to give us permission. We're going to do something even more powerful, which is to give ourselves permission. So I've put in the PDF file there a permission slip, right? And this is a reminder of what you deserve. You can print this slip, you can keep it handy for when you feel like you're losing focus on self-care. Reading it can motivate you to get back on track. You can create your own, but that is included there in your PDF file. Another good and really effective method, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of letters to your younger self, but this exercise can be amazingly effective in that it helps put things into perspective. So if you get out a piece of paper or type it up, but write a letter to your younger self and pick an age that resonates with you. So possibly say you're writing a letter to your 25-year-old self. You're at that age where you've entered adulthood and you feel like you have the world figured out. Or maybe you were focused on starting your career or getting married and starting a family. Whatever stage you might have been in, what would you tell your younger self knowing what you know now? What advice or words of wisdom would you give him or her as she had her entire life ahead of her? And you don't have to write just one letter. You can write different letters to different ages of your younger self. And it's not to drudge up regret, because the past is the past. You can't change it, but you can learn from it. And the reason why this exercise can be so powerful in helping you give yourself permission is that you'll likely end up seeing so many opportunities along your journey where you could have made time for things, but you didn't. And it helps you to realize you don't want to get 10 more years down the road without doing some of the things that you really desire to do. So again, it helps create awareness and motivation that can help drive you to give yourself permission and do those things that are important to you. All right, so we did the miss list, right? Those were writing down things that we could say no to, that we could miss if we chose to. Now we have the me list, and this is a list of things that you can plan for yourself should you decide to say no to some of the things on your miss list. And Same format, right? It's actually writing down certain things that you would like to do for yourself or take the time for. And that way you can actually, if you, again, add some extra notes to it, you can actually see your reasons why you feel it's important for you to do these things. And again, it helps let go of the guilt and more easily grant yourself permission by justifying your reasons. So it's also a great idea that if you actually do some of the items that are on your me list, check them off or cross them off or highlight them. But what helps with that is when you see that you're actually doing some of these things that you want to do, you're taking action and that builds momentum to continue taking more action. So what we're going to do, and we'll do less than 10 minutes this time. Maybe we'll do a total of 5 minutes, Aubrey, but we'll go back into the breakout rooms. And this time, again, we're going to write down some things that we want to do, for ourselves, whether that means spending time with family or things completely for yourself, whatever that looks like. And then, so write some of those things down and then share it with your group and explain why those items are important to you. Step 4 is really important because asking each person how they plan to prioritize their items, it helps to create a sense of accountability. And that is something I think that we can all use no matter what we want to do. So Aubrey, we'll go ahead, and if you want to go ahead and put folks back into the breakout rooms. Again, we'll spend maybe a total of 5 minutes on this one to get started.
Awesome. I opened the room, so you guys should be able to click the invitation to join, and we'll put the information in the chat for you on what to talk about in your breakouts. All right, and Lisa, if you have some instructions for the chat, let me know and I can put them in there for you.
Yeah. Okay, hold on here.
Or I think you can actually just paste them into the everyone in meeting. You have that selected, it'll go to everybody too.
Yeah, okay. I'm copying right now. All right, and yeah, we'll just do a total of 5 minutes.
Sweet. So we'll bring him back a little before 3:40. And I'm not sure if we'll have extra time, but if we do, remind me, are you wanting to do some Q&A time if people have questions?
So I'm going to skip the part of people sharing an item on their me list when we come back, because I think we'll be running a little short on time maybe. If we have any time for Q&A, we can, but if we're running short on anything else you want to end with, we certainly don't need to. So I will leave that up to you. They can also email me as well. I've got my email address up on the screen on every slide too. So that's an option as well.
Great. Yeah, and I'll put all that information in the chat, and then I'll send it out in the January newsletter as well. Okay. So they'll have a chance to connect with you again. I'll put your LinkedIn and your website and then your email in the chat as well, along with the PDF again as well, so that people can snag it before they leave if they haven't already downloaded it.
Okay, perfect. Sounds marvelous.
Yes, yes.
All right, Aubrey, do we have everyone back?
We've got two stragglers. They're hanging out in
Okay,
room 2. Must
we're
be
having a
good
good
conversation.
conversation. Let me know when we're ready to go.
Awesome. Looks like they're coming
Always
back.
hate to break up good discussions. All right, are we good?
Everyone's here. Take it away.
Okay, coming back from that. So we are next going to talk about accountability partners. Well, first off, hopefully everyone was able to identify some things to put on their me list. And if you have some things you want to share, please put them in the chat, because it'd be cool to see some of the ideas that people come up with what they actually want to do and don't necessarily have time for. Along that, accountability partners. If anyone has ever had an accountability partner, asking a friend or two to hold you accountable by checking in with you on a regular basis to see how you're doing with your progress on giving yourself permission for self-care, right? For some of those things that you put on your me list. And there's a Dr. Gail Matthews, a psychology professor, conducted a study about goal achievement. And the results showed that those people who wrote down their goals, shared them with a friend, sent them weekly updates on it, they were 33% more likely to actually achieve their goal than if they had just written them down. So having an accountability partner can make a huge difference no matter what it is that you want to achieve. And they can be your champion, your cheerleader, your inspirer, your motivator. They can help keep you on track. And if you do lose focus, it's okay, but you want to get back on track as quickly as possible, just so you don't fall back into those old habits that have been preventing you from taking time for yourself all along. So next, we're going to get into the final piece of the strategy called making one change at a time. This is where the magic starts to happen, and it does take some discipline. So this is where an accountability partner can really make a huge and positive impact. So follow with me here, and then I'll have a diagram that helps explain this a little bit better, and it's also in the PDF file. But start off by making one change one thing per week. So it doesn't matter if it's big or small. Like on the screen, it's something that takes 5 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it is. Change one thing per week and do this one change each week for 3 weeks in a row. Okay. I'll give an example. Tammy is going to be my fictitious example here. So Tammy wants to prioritize self-care in her life, and she chose to meditate for 30 minutes a week, right? It's not her end goal, but it's a start, and it's something that she's been wanting to do. And even though it doesn't maybe happen the same night every week, it doesn't matter. She's actually making time for it. It's something she put on her me list. Step number 2. So after the first 3 weeks, change one additional thing each week while maintaining your first change. Okay. So now you're actively changing 2 things each week. Do these 2 changes each week for the next 3 weeks. So Tammy also wanted to cook a healthy meal each week. She'd gotten into that unhealthy habit of just grabbing food on the go all the time. She knows that she could be eating healthier. And so now she's meditating for 30 minutes a week. And now she's adding cooking one healthy meal per week for the next 3 weeks. And it's starting to feel a little more liberating for her, knowing that she can actually include these things in her schedule if she prioritizes them. So step number 3, after 6 weeks have gone by, change one more thing each week while maintaining your first 2 changes. So now you're actively changing 3 things each week. So do these 3 changes each week for 3 weeks in a row. Again, they don't have to be big things. So going back to Tammy, she's been meditating now for a total of 6 weeks. She's been meditating, and she added cooking a healthy meal for herself for the last 3 weeks. Her new thing that she's adding is that she's going to make time to call her best friend who lives in another state once a week rather than just texting all the time. She realizes that she hasn't fostered her relationships like she's wanted to, and she misses that in her life. So she knows she would have closer relationships if she just invested in them. So also, her meditation, she's realized how beneficial that is for her. So she's adding a little bit more of that into her week, more than just 30 minutes a week. These are all small things, but they're making significant changes in her life to where she feels like she now has a little more control over her life versus her life having control over her. So again, it's a progression, and it takes discipline in order to make that happen. And for the visual learners out there, I'm hoping this kind of helps to explain it a little more easily. So again, you do the one change for the first 3 weeks. You do it each week for 3 weeks. And then you add a second thing, and you do both things each week for 3 weeks. You add the third change, you do all 3 of those each week for 3 weeks. If it works for you, you can stop at 2 things. You can go all the way to 6, 10 things, whatever works for you, but you get the idea on how this process works and how effective it really can be. So some examples, someone's like, I don't even know where to start. I know someone earlier mentioned cutting out some TV time, right? I think a lot of us are guilty of that. And again, it's where you decide to prioritize your time. So some examples up there: spending a night with no social media, or maybe if a full night is too much, maybe start with 2 hours a night. Skip eating sweets for one day, leave work early and just go journal somewhere in a favorite coffee shop or something. A 15-minute walk, even during the day, walking around the building or the house, wherever you're working or studying from, just to get some fresh air. Calling that longtime friend, okay? So it's coming up with ideas and ways of things that you can implement. So using the chat, what are some small changes that you can make? What comes to mind when you think of this method that you think would be beneficial to you and would be doable, right? So go ahead and add that into the chat. Any small things or big things that come to mind. You might motivate somebody else or inspire somebody else by sharing that. And in the PDF file, there's another visual that I included that helps step this out and what this process looks like. So a couple different visuals there for you to utilize. I know Aubrey talked about books and podcasts. I will tell you the change. I just read the book Atomic Habits, and it was pretty eye-opening really on how to get rid of maybe not so great habits, but implement new healthy habits into your life. And he really gets into the psychology of that. I should have had the book here with me, but I can't remember the author's name, but it's called Atomic Habits. Again, has been pretty eye-opening to me as far as implementing new healthy habits into your life. So I do recommend that book for sure. All right, so we talked about releasing ugly, that unnecessary guilt limiting you. We talked about story or fact. Ask yourself, am I telling myself a story or is this based on fact? The third person perspective can be extremely effective. And then using the miss list or something like that. Granting self permission, creating a permission list or slip for yourself. Letters to your younger self, again, can be pretty eye-opening and create a whole different perspective that maybe you haven't really thought about. The me list, and then of course, accountability partners. And then we walk through making one change at a time method. So with those things, again, each change you make is another step towards center stage. And depending on how big your stage is, will depend on how many steps it'll take you to get there, to get to the center of your stage. And when you reach center stage, you will feel absolutely amazing. Right, Aubrey, that is what I have. And all right, James Clear, yes, Atomic Habits. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your expertise and your wisdom on this topic. I know, especially as we're coming towards the end of the year, it can be really hard to figure out how to make time for these things, but I love that you broke it up into practical and actionable steps. So I'll be definitely taking some of those things away. I wrote down a lot of notes for myself. As we begin wrapping up here today, you're so welcome. As we begin wrapping up here today, I wanted to make sure that you all have access to how you can contact Lisa after the event today. So I'm just going to put some links here in the chat, but we also have about 10 minutes left before this event is scheduled to be finished today. So if anyone has any questions that they want to come off mute and ask or put in the chat, we definitely have some time to cover those. While you're thinking about those, I'll go ahead and give a quick pitch for CWL as well. The event is being held through CWL today, the Center for Women's Leadership at the Forbes School of Business. And this month's theme is self-care and leadership, as you have just experienced with Lisa today. We are really wanting to focus on how you as leaders can care about yourself, when oftentimes as a leader, you're focusing on your followers or the people in your community first before yourself, and you can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. So that's one thing we wanted to do with you all this month as we finish up the year. Something else that we wanted to highlight is that we have a new whole list of events coming up for next year. I've put some information here in the chat as well for how you can connect with us on our website, our event page. We have an Instagram page, a LinkedIn group, and a YouTube page as well. So this event will be clipped on our YouTube page and in our newsletter as well. So feel free to connect with us there as well afterwards. It looks like Charlie said in the chat, all good points. Thanks for sharing. As I've gotten older, the ability to say no to some of the time requests is helpful. Yeah, that's great. We'll give a few seconds for people to chime in with their questions. I'd love to know too, Lisa, how did you go from being in the corporate space to teaching people about self-care and confidence? What was that journey like for you?
I led a team of 75 folks for a large construction engineering firm across the US and Canada. And then I moved into the talent development program within that organization and went on my own through several coaching certifications, and just something that I'm passionate about, and decided to try it on my own, and very much focused on the confidence piece of it. I feel like with all of the great professional development programs out there, I feel like confidence is really that foundational skill that sometimes isn't really talked about much. And so to me, that's what my programs are built upon, really, is starting with that confidence, and then everything else is a little more easier to build upon that. So, yeah.
That's very true. And it's really hard to move forward when you don't have the good foundational belief in yourself that you're able to do what you want to accomplish, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. It doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put the January 2023 events flyer in the chat as well. Feel free to download that if you guys are still here. And don't be shy. Join us at some events next year. And get in touch with Lisa. Again, her information is right here. I'll go ahead and also put the PDF that she was referencing today in the chat again, so that you can continue working with this information on your own. I know sometimes it can be a lot to process all of it within just 1 hour. So take some time for yourself, reflect on this year, and we look forward to seeing you guys next year. And thank you again, Lisa, so much for your time and your efforts. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.